FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome, and you are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and we see there's a lot of things going on in the economy, the tax cuts, a reinvigorated American economy with possibly or probably higher GDP growth rates in the offing. Last year, we had 2 straight quarters of 3% plus GDP growth, something that hadn't occurred in over 10 years. Rising interest rates, rising prices probably bodes well for the commodity cycle. Probably can look forward to commodities going up substantially in the next 12 to 18 months. And our sponsor is back with us, Max Porterfield. You are CEO, Director of Callinex Mines, and we are thrilled to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me again.
So Outlook has changed quite a bit in the past year, hasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly has. I think that overall the commodities are coming back in vogue. You've seen the base metals prices rise quite nicely, particularly copper and zinc, where our company's positioned. And you've also seen some strength out of the gold prices as well.
Pretty exciting. Hey, and if you want to find out more about Callinex, I suggest you go to their website, callinex.ca. That's CALLINEX.ca. The symbol on the Toronto Venture Exchange is CNX. In light of the fact that base metal prices rose so high last year, I mean, it was an amazing year from that standpoint. You're in a particularly good position to take advantage of that due to your Nash Creek property.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we've continued to see a strong zinc price. Just as early as this week, it hit another decade-long high of $1.63 a pound. I think it still has more room to run. With that being said, it's no better time to be growing and expanding a zinc-rich deposit, and with the underpinning zinc price, moving higher. We've had a tremendous amount of success at our Nash Creek deposit. With our summer and winter campaign have been concluded at the end of last year. And we're just now getting those results out to the market, and it's been quite exciting to do. We've increased the strike length of the deposit by roughly 50%. So we've announced roughly half of the last 35 holes that we drilled that ended in December there. We've got the rest of the holes to announce in the near future, and that'll lead to an updated resource and initial maiden preliminary economic assessment on the property by May of this year. So we're very excited.
And when you compared your company with Cisco Metals, which your direct peer, your stock price is discounted some 80% to theirs. What do you think it's going to take for the market to really recognize the value play that Callinex represents?
I think from overall valuation standpoint, more consistently that we get work done on the property and show investors out there and current shareholders as well that we're continuing to add value by de-risking the asset and adding tons through our exploration programs is going to be really key to adding shareholder value in the future and by having higher share price, quite obviously. But I think the key catalyst again is going to be the updated resource, because we can announce all these drill holes and they have been pretty significant, especially the ones that have been released more recently here. But really, people want to see it put on paper, and that's what an updated resource will do for us, as well as the preliminary economic assessment to try to put numbers around what a potential mining operation will look like at Nash Creek. And so again, I think those 2 key updates to the market will allow us to get a revaluation in the stock price.
And we also know that basically the world isn't producing enough zinc, especially if there's a major economic boost or resurgence in the U.S. and in China. We're going to be faced with tight supplies, aren't we?
You have extremely tight supplies. I think that's something we've discussed previously on your show over the past year and a half or so. You've seen zinc prices come from sub 80 cents to hitting $1.63 just earlier this week. And that's underpinned by supply and demand fundamentals that are really pointing to higher prices going forward in the future. You've got a market imbalance where supply hasn't been meeting demand. That's been made up with above ground inventories over the past 6-7 years or so. And we've just now in the London Exchange crested below 200,000 tons in inventories, which is a key kind of point there from an stockpile standpoint. We got less than 10 days of zinc inventories out there in the market, and that's all going to lead to higher prices to really incentivize companies like Callinex to continue to do exploration and development for new zinc mines, which has really been delayed and pushed off with the kind of the bear market that we've had in commodities, previous to this more recent move that you've seen in the base metal space.
Hey, and just your past, you've spent over 10 years in the natural resources and financial markets. You're with Brazil Resources, Uranium Energy, U.S. Global Investors. During that more than 1 decade of experience, what do you think is the biggest lesson you've learned about resource stocks and markets?
Well, it's definitely a cyclical business, and you need to use those cycles to your advantage, much like we did here at Callinex when we saw, zinc prices weren't really showing the underlying fundamentals behind the zinc price when you had you had that sharp move downward. There was talks that Glencore was potentially going to go bankrupt at that time. It was December 2016. And that's a great opportunity when you want to be aggressive in acquiring assets in a cyclical business like the commodity space. And that's what we did at Callinex. And I think from an investor standpoint, it's no different. You really want to go where those markets are really, really tight, because that's where you're going to get the most movement, price action, underlying commodity. So that's what we're seeing today.
So it really pays to be a contrarian. And Ray Dalio in Davos last week runs the world's top performing hedge fund. Past 36 years, said we're in a Goldilocks period with plenty of growth due to tax cuts. We haven't seen the commodity stocks joining the rally thus far, except for a brief period in 2016. You think the junior mining sector is due for a major advance?
I definitely do. I think that his comments are extremely accurate. Usually the commodities will lead the cycle, and then you'll be followed suit by the juniors. And the juniors haven't really played out so far yet. But definitely that's just right around the corner. Once you have a longer term prices stabilize, because you've had such a dramatic move in zinc, for example, I think that investors want to make sure that the prices are here to stay, and then you get a revaluation underlying equities. So it's definitely hasn't happened yet. Something that we're eagerly watching, and something that we definitely see potentially happening in the very near future.
And in good company, Jeff Gundlach, billionaire, he's nicknamed the bond god, calling for higher rates, which are obviously indicating inflation levels on the way up. He says his fund is now invested heavily in commodities. So the big money, the major money, is going towards these commodities.
Yeah, no, it's cyclical. You've seen the big funds really leave. Haven't seen them come into the space, maybe tip their toe from time to time. But when you have asset flows or money flows into a particular sector, it's going to have a big move in the underlying equities in that space. So hopefully that's just the beginning of flows into the commodity space, particularly the zinc equities.
We've seen oil go up too. Oil over $66 a barrel, and generally oil is going to lead the commodity cycle when it turns up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very positive to see the energy space heating up as well. That bodes well. Obviously points to global growth, which is just going to be more commodity consumption going forward. And excited to be positioned for it.
For sure. So getting back to Nash Creek, I mean, that's really the focus of the majority of your efforts now. Things are really going well there. It looks like it's going to be even bigger than you thought. Besides a positive zinc price, what else do you need to really make that a home run?
Well, we just need to continue to de-risk the asset through exploration, development, and permitting. And the further we get along that curve and advance that asset, closer we get to the goal line for it becoming a mine.
You've been in resources. This is your life. What made you go into the sector, Max?
Well, I think exploration is quite exciting. The idea that you can go out there and start with a concept or a thesis and, put a drill into the ground and create value. Not only that, create jobs, and it's really the building block of the global economy is really built on commodities. Because they're used in everyday lives. It's quite exciting. It's great to be a part of it.
I know most of your days are dominated by making Callinex work, but when you're not in the office, what do you do for fun?
Well, fortunately, I do enjoy traveling. Callinex does take me a lot of different places to meet with different investors and access, capital and tell our story. So when I'm not, in meetings and what have you, I do like to check out different places I visit and travel.
Well, travel's always fun, and you never know what's going to happen when you're traveling. It's the mystery. It's just like mining. You never know what's going to happen when you put the drill in the ground and what you're going to find. When we look back in a couple of years at this particular point in history, what do you think we're going to see? Which obviously is a forward-looking statement, so I will put that caveat in there.
Well, Yeah, no, I definitely think it'd be a great time to have been a buyer in the commodities space. At the end of the day, I think the problem with commodities in general is making new discoveries and developing a new mine supply is becoming more and more difficult. So aside from, the demand side of the equation, it's really a supply side problem because without that supply, you can't really build a whole lot. So it's a tremendous, business to be in, but it's becoming increasingly difficult, which is going to lead to higher prices. From that standpoint, it's an excellent investment opportunity, particularly when you're invested in a successful company, and we're working very diligently to make Callinex one of those.
So reality is eventually going to catch up with the junior miners and the mining sector, the resource sector in general, because it can't stay detached for long periods of time without catching up. When we look around the world, a few short months ago before the tax cuts in the U.S., it was a slightly rising level of optimism, but something with those tax cuts really cut to the core and made business people like yourself just stand up and take notice and commit and stop worrying. Do you feel it?
Yeah, I definitely feel it. I think that overall sentiment is improved dramatically. So it's very, very positive. Anytime you incentivize people to take risks or put more money in their pocket, they're more apt to take risk and reinvest that into growth, and it's tremendous, catalyst. So it's really great to see it kind of playing out for us.
Controlling risk, taking reasonable risks for large potential profits, that's what you do. And it's got to help you on many levels, that the optimism level, the confidence level is rising.
Absolutely. I mean, risk is really the kind of the foundation of our business and managing that risk. So when you get in a more of a risk-on environment, makes it that much easier for us to go out there, take risks, knowing that we're rewarded should we prove to be successful like we have had at Nash Creek in particular.
Got to be exciting times for you, Max. Hey, take a look at the company's website. We've had Max Porterfield on, CEO, Director of Callinex. The website, callinex.ca. That's CALLINEX.ca. And take a look at the stock symbol. It's on the Toronto Venture, CNX. Max, thanks for coming on. Thanks for supporting the show. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thanks so much for having me.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.